Next up is from Jessika C. Hey, John, Robert, and Ashley. So, Pet Cemetery opened to $25 million, which has me wondering, why did it make so much less than It? Did Shazam impact its numbers, or did audiences just not care enough about the movie itself? Thanks.
Because I looked at the numbers, Jessica, and yeah, it looked like it made about 25 mil opening weekend, which I gotta tell you is lower than what I thought. Now, it's a little unfair to compare it to It, because It was the highest grossing opening weekend box office for horror in the history of the genre. So that's a little bit of an unfair comparison. But still, look, it's a little bit like the Shazam situation. The buzz about this movie was very good. The critics really liked it. The trailers were great. And yet, at 25 million, just in the last 2 years, look at all these other horror films that beat Pet Semetary's opening weekend. A Quiet Place had 50.2 million opening. Halloween had a 76.2 million opening. The Nun, which was terrible, made 53.8 million. It, obviously the number one, it came in with 123.4 million. Get Out made 33.3 million. Split made 40 million. Annabelle Creation made 35 million. Us made 71.1 million. Rob, there's a big list of movies that have come out, horror movies come out just in the last couple of years, that all outperformed Cemetery, when on its surface you would think Cemetery would at least be a little bit middling in there. The trailers look creepy as hell. You had a great cast. It's rolling on this Stephen King-assance that's going on, all that kind of stuff. So I guess it's kind of like the same question we had with Shazam. Understanding all the things that this thing seemed to have going for it, what are some possibilities, what are some theories you may have about why going into opening weekend some audience members decided, nah, I'm not going to take a chance on that? What do you think held it back?
Well, if I go back to, first of all, there's a Pet Cemetery movie that a lot of people grew up with, so they know the story.
Yeah.
This is not, I would say that Pet Cemetery, compared to, say, It, you've got a killer clown. It's fun. This is a movie about dead kids and dead pets coming back to life. I mean, this is what I would call lurid subject matter. And it is not the fun factor in this. This is true horror. This
Right.
is not mass consumption horror. This is get under your skin and go to places we don't even want to talk about. And Stephen King always said when he wrote this book, this was the scariest book he ever wrote. And indeed, when the book came out in 82, I read it the day it came out. It was, in fact, the scariest book I ever read. But it was deeply, deeply unsettling to read. Even as a kid, I was like, oh my God. And I just think that audiences were aware. I think they might have been, dare I say it, a little scared of this movie. Unlike Annabelle, that Annabelle's going to be fun. You know that Pennywise is going to be fun. You're not going to, you walk out of Pennywise, you survive Pennywise. It's like, yeah. But when kids are dying and coming back from the dead, that gets a little sketchy. That's like, if I was like, say, a 14-year-old girl, which is where the horror market, the teenage female market has become very important to horror in the last 2 decades.
Yes.
If I'm a teenage girl and I know that I'm going to see a movie where a kid dies and comes back from the dead, and it's going to be played seriously, I might hell, as a middle-aged man, I'm like, do I want to see a kid die? I do, but I want to see a kid come back from the dead. But I don't know if that's something everybody wants to go see, but I've heard nothing but great things about this movie. So I'm dying to see it. I didn't see it this weekend. I'm a fan of Mary Lambert's original. I love the book. I can't wait to see this movie. But I think this is, we're getting a lot of what I would call faux horror or fun horror. It's not the Clive Barker deeply disturbing horror. It's jump scare horror and fun horror. It's amusement park horror. This is not that.
I think you raise a great point about that too, because I think you're absolutely right. When you look at the big successful ones, you look at It, there's a fun factor to that. As creepy and scary as the clown is, it's the clown, right? And it's got some of that too. When you look at some of these other films, there's a little bit of that. As even A Quiet Place, like, it's the premise that everybody's got to stay quiet. What's the premise of Pet Cemetery? Bury a corpse, it'll come back soulless. That's your premise.
That's a great way. Well put, by the way. Nice.
And every once in a while I'll come up with one. But it seems like That is, I think you're absolutely right, Rob. I think you nailed it. It's the heaviness of it that I think appealed to some and didn't appeal to a lot, whether it's the female audience or the middle-aged guy who doesn't really want to see, oh my God, that scene when Jason is combing his daughter's hair in the bath and he's feeling something, and he pulls her hair apart and it's got the coroner's staples in the back of her skull. Oh my God. I mean, that was creepy as hell.
I think you just may have coined a phrase that I would like to start using, which is heavy horror. I've never heard that before. I've heard splatterpunk, slasher, whatever. Heavy horror is a way to delineate. Like I would call something like The Witch, which I adored. The Witch is heavy horror. Hereditary is heavy horror. And I think that Pet
Paranormal
Sematary
Activity is fun horror.
Is fun. Yes, we got to come up with a better word than fun. What is the opposite of heavy? I don't like light horror.
Yeah.
But heavy
horror. Whimsical horror. No, that's even worse. We'll come up with something.
But heavy horror, I think that, and look, I loved Hereditary, but another movie where, let's just say, kids don't fare well, and I think that's a lot of people like their horror at arm's length, but heavy horror gets into your psyche, burrows into your mind, and really disturbs.
All right, guys, what do you think? Why do you think more people didn't go out to give this movie Pet Sematary? And by the way, $25 million for a film like this is pretty good. And one of the things I didn't mention, Rob, you mentioned that there was an original movie. I didn't like the original movie. And I think maybe there are a bunch of people that didn't like the original movie. Maybe that kept them away from it too. So that's a possibility. But guys, what do you think? Jump down in the comment section and let us know your thoughts.